Good evening and welcome to Talk Local. I'm Sonia Chin. The holiday season is here, and with it brings a lot of social gathering. And with that brings drinking and driving. And to ensure that there is no drinking and driving on the roads, Operation Red Nose here in Brampton has begun its 2010 campaign. And to talk more about their campaign, I have Kathy Skidmore, the coordinator for that project. So thank you very much, Kathy, for joining us here tonight.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, there's so many questions I would love to ask. Why don't we start off first with how did Operation Red Nose begin?
It began in 1984 in Quebec City. A gentleman that was working for Laval University wanted to raise funds for a swim team. And he started offering rides and accepted donations and began the first Operation Red Nose in Quebec City. And then from there it grew, and now it's actually across Canada. And in Ontario we have 12 communities that run Operation Red Nose every year.
So Operation Red Nose began in Brampton what year?
Last year.
Oh, last year.
Yeah.
So
this is our second year only. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did you become involved with Operation Red Nose? Let's just find out first how you became involved, and then tell us how wonderful this project is.
Well, I became involved because I am part of St. John Ambulance, and they were asked to host this program. So as part of that, I offered to step up and help run and organize of that. So it actually had more to do with the fact that I was with St. John and then heard about this wonderful campaign and said, you know, certainly this is something that we need to do to keep our roads safer. So I stepped up last year and again this year to make sure that our roads are safer.
Oh, so it's the St. John's Ambulance that created this program?
That host it, yeah.
Okay.
So we're the ones that help to make sure that we have volunteers, make sure we have sponsorships, you know, make sure that we have a facility to run out of and all of that things. So yeah.
So tell me about the first year, how it began, how you got it all started, what challenges did you have to meet and how did you overcome them?
Well, I mean, I think our huge challenge that we were afraid of was the number of volunteers. Were we going to get enough people that were willing to help us keep the roads safe, you know? Where would they come from? Because, you know, St. John Ambulance obviously has their own volunteers, but were we going to have enough to be able to provide the service to everybody that we needed to? And we were able to do that last year, except for our last evening. I guess the word got out, and unfortunately we did have a couple rides that we needed to turn away because we just weren't able to get to them that last night. So, but that was our biggest challenge, was the number of volunteers, you know.
So how are you getting volunteers to join on this year? How many do you need and how many do you have right now?
Well, last year we had 86 volunteers, and right now we're actually right about that number as well. So we are still looking for new volunteers because we expect the service to, you know, to have more calls, to have more requests as we go along. So this last weekend we were able to field 6 teams. So it works basically where there's a group of 3 go out and pick up someone who's requested a ride. So maybe I should start way back at
let's do it. So let's
beginning.
start in the beginning. So
So
Operation Red Nose Brampton is all about
providing safe rides. So what we do is that we let people know that there's a phone number they can call on Friday or Saturday nights.
And let's give that phone number out right now. The number for Operation Red Nose Brampton is 905-459-2440, and the hours of operation are from 9 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. December 3rd and 4th weekend, and the weekend of 10/11, and the weekend of 17 and 18th. And also, while I'm giving out numbers, remember the number to call us here at Talk Local to share your comments and views is 905-457-3270. We would like to hear from you. But back to you, Kathy, about Operation Red Nose.
So someone would give us a call and say that they would like a ride home. And the first thing we ask them is if they have a car, because we're only allowed to provide a ride to somebody who already has their vehicle. Okay. So we send a group of 3 people out to get them, whether that's at a bar or a private residence or a restaurant, wherever they happen to be. 2 of those volunteers go in what we call the client's car, and one of them drives and one of them you know, helps get directions and everything, so we have a navigator. And then there's a 3rd driver that is what we call an escort driver, and they follow along and make sure that our volunteers now have a way back or a way to get to their next call. So
Okay,
we work in a group of threes with the
okay.
volunteers.
So it's to make sure I understand this, so you have, so it's one car that goes out,
Right,
there's 3 people in the car, and there's the 3 volunteers. One is a driver,
right,
one is a navigator,
right.
and the other
Is
is
the escort driver.
the escort driver.
So they usually drive their own vehicles as well, and we reimburse for mileage as well, so that they're not out of pocket for volunteering their time in their vehicle as well.
Okay.
So.
And so this whole group goes out then to the
To
caller.
yeah, wherever they ask them to be picked up, and then the 3 of them take that person to wherever they're going, you know, again, whether that's a bar, a restaurant, or home again. So we can do multiple stops. So if somebody's got people that they came with as well, we can drop them off on the way home, as well as you know, the original client. So.
So when you actually go to pick up these clients, what state are they in? It could be any state, because I'm sure some might be enamored and maybe not. I don't know if you have anyone that become violent. Do they call themselves, or do you actually have people who are responsible for the party saying, you know what, I have someone here that needs a ride home?
Well, we've had both. You know, some people have just gone out for dinner and have had, you know, a couple drinks, and now the law is very strict on drinking and driving. So they call us up, and they're very, you know, coherent, if that's the right word. And we've gotten the other side where, you know, people are, you know, in a situation where they really definitely should not be driving. So we don't judge. This is a non-judgmental and a confidential service. So we don't release names. We don't have our volunteers talk about anybody by name, and we make sure they sign a confidentiality agreement with us as well. So people can feel safe that if they do give us a call, information about them will not be released.
Okay. So what is the process that the person who is calling for your assistance, what do they have to do?
So what we do is that we ask them, first of all, as I had mentioned earlier, that they have a vehicle. They must have proof of their insurance as well, and then they just need to give us the information of where they are and where they're going to. And that's pretty well it. So, you know.
So you actually use their vehicle to drive
them home, right?
Okay.
Right. So we're not a taxi service. We're more like a chauffeur, you know, service where we're getting them home safely.
Okay. So it's the person that's going to be driving their car. So I guess it would be important to know if it's a manual car or if it's automatic.
Standard or automatic, and we ask the number of seat belts as well. As I mentioned before, there might be they might have guests as well that they want us to drive home, so we need to make sure there's still room for our 2 volunteers to be in that vehicle. So we need to know things like that as well. Yeah.
And what has the feedback been for you in regards to, I guess, the police and you know, seeing that you're helping them out, trying to combat drinking and driving on the roads? What's the response been?
Actually, they've been supportive, you know, because this is kind of new. Again, we just started last year, so they didn't really know what what we're all about either, right? But we have had our volunteers actually drive clients through a police ride check. And so, you know, on the way there, they might have got stopped, and then on the way back, they got stopped as well, and they kind of just waved them through because they saw we wear nice red vests on, so you can identify us very easily. And so the police have been very good to us as well. So
can you give me an example of what happens? So if the police does pull the vehicle over and you have one of your volunteers driving the car, what is the conversation that takes place?
Well, I mean, I didn't really get into details necessarily with the volunteers, other than the fact that, you know, the person that we were driving home was very thankful that they had called us because there was the stop, and, you know, so the police officer, you know, knew, you know, that obviously who was driving was sober because of them being part of this program. So, and very appreciative, the client driver, or the client was very appreciative that we, you know, had to come to pick them up, and they didn't have that concern, you know, got home safely.
Is there any challenges if someone is unable to walk or,
Well, we
have their
always
own ability because they've had a little bit too much to drink. How far do you go to assist them?
Well, we say to our volunteers, never put yourself in danger either, right? So, people are volunteering. We want to keep them safe as well. So if they get into a situation where they just don't feel comfortable, they have the right to refuse to drive somebody. And unfortunately, this last weekend as well, we had some people that had the breathalyzers in their vehicles. And we're not allowed, by law, nobody else is allowed to drive that vehicle. If you have the, so they've already got their car monitoring, and so you're not allowed to. Nobody else is allowed to drive that vehicle.
Okay,
so we had to refuse them.
So you do have some restrictions and some criteria that you have to meet. So one of the criteria you must have is
that, well, you must have a vehicle is the first thing, because we do have people call and ask us to take them home without having a vehicle. They must have their own insurance as well, and there's been a lot of conversation about insurance lately, I've heard, and they must have the right number of seat belts, and they must, we try not to discriminate in any way and say that you're not fit to be driven home, because obviously you need our service. So that's where that's what we're trying to provide, is provide everybody that we can a ride home. So
okay, well, that's great. Well, let's make sure we have that information out. Operation Red Nose Brampton, the number to call is 905-459-2440, and the hours of operation are 9 p.m. to 2:30 a.m., and it's the weekend of December 3rd and 4th, 10 and 11, and weekend of 17th and the 18th. And remember, the number to call us here on Talk Local is 905-457-3270. We are going to take a quick break. We will be right back. Stay with us.